Welcome back, friends, to the Midnight Fire, where we gather around the digital embers to share stories that stir the soul and chill the blood. Tonight, we turn our gaze to the vast, unknowable expanse of the ocean. It's a world of breathtaking beauty, of life-giving power, but also a realm of crushing pressure, eternal darkness, and secrets that were never meant for the surface. We're talking about what the tide leaves behind. Most of us have walked along a beach as the water recedes. We find beautiful shells, smooth sea glass, maybe a piece of driftwood shaped like a serpent. It's a treasure hunt gifted by the waves, but the tide isn't always so generous. Sometimes it leaves warnings. Sometimes it leaves behind things that whisper of the horrors lurking beneath the waves. Think about the sheer scale of it. Over 70% of our planet is covered by water, and the vast majority of that is an abyss we've barely explored. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Down there in the crushing blackness, life exists under principles we can hardly comprehend. Creatures that have never seen the sun, evolving in silent isolation for millennia. What would happen if one of them washed ashore? Imagine you're on a desolate stretch of coastline, miles from the nearest town. A storm has just passed, churning the sea into a fury. The air is thick with the smell of salt and ozone. As you walk, you see something dark and massive tangled in a mess of seaweed and fishing nets. It's not a whale, not a dolphin. The shape is wrong. It's bulbous and fleshy, with too many limbs, or perhaps not enough. As you get closer, a smell hits you, not just of decay, but of something alien, something that doesn't belong to the chemistry of our world. This is a classic trope in maritime horror, the monster from the deep that washes up, a harbinger of what's to come. It's the physical proof that our world isn't entirely our own. It's the first clue in a terrifying mystery. The local marine biologist is baffled. The old fisherman with eyes that have seen too much just shakes his head and mutters about legends, about things that sleep and should never be woken. But it's not just about monstrous creatures. What else does the tide leave? It leaves behind the remnants of human tragedy. A single child-sized shoe, a waterlogged diary, its ink bleeding into unreadable Rorschach blots, the last frantic thoughts of a passenger on a doomed vessel. A ship's bell encrusted with barnacles that rings with a silent, ghostly peal only you can hear. These objects are heavy with stories, with the ghosts of final moments. They connect us directly to the human cost of the ocean's power. Each one is a question mark, a story cut short. Who wore this shoe? What secrets did this diary hold? The sea gives up the artifact, but keeps the answers for itself, leaving our imaginations to fill in the terrifying blanks. Then there are the truly inexplicable finds. Objects that defy history and physics. Strange metallic spheres covered in undecipherable glyphs. Pieces of architecture that don't match any known civilization, ancient or modern. These are the things that suggest something more than just undiscovered species or human misfortune. They hint at lost cities, at non-human intelligence, at gateways to other places hidden beneath the waves. H.P. Lovecraft built his entire mythology on this concept, the idea of ancient, cosmic beings slumbering in sunken cities like Relay, their influence seeping into the world, waiting for the stars to be right. When the tide leaves behind a relic of their existence, it's not just a curiosity, it's a sign that the clock is ticking. This fear taps into something primal within us. The ocean is the womb of all life on Earth, but it's also the ultimate graveyard. It's a place of constant change, of immense indifferent power. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. It can bring sustenance and beauty, or it can bring wreckage and terror. We build our lighthouses and our seawalls. We chart our maps and our shipping lanes, but it's all just a fragile attempt to impose order on chaos. We are, and always will be, at the mercy of the water. And what about the tide of the mind? Sometimes the most terrifying things left behind aren't physical at all. Think of the sole survivor of a shipwreck, washed ashore, raving about what they saw in the water. The crew turning on each other, the whispers that came from the fog, the shape that followed the ship for days, just beneath the surface. They are left behind by the tide, but they carry the abyss within them. Their sanity has been eroded, washed away, and in its place is a terrifying truth that no one else will believe. They become a message in a bottle themselves, a living warning of the horrors the sea can inflict not just on the body, but on the soul. Let's dive into a story. Picture a small, isolated island community. Their lives are governed by the sea. One morning, after a week of unnaturally calm, glassy water, the tide recedes further than anyone has ever seen. It exposes a vast, muddy plain that was always seabed. The islanders, curious, venture out. At first, they find old anchors and lost fishing gear. But as they go further, they find the entrance to a cave system, a gaping maw in the newly exposed earth. Against the warnings of the elders, a group of young, adventurous souls decides to explore it before the tide returns. They carry lanterns and rope, their laughter echoing in the damp, salty air. But the deeper they go, the quieter they become. The cave walls aren't natural rock. They're smooth, almost like polished obsidian, and covered in intricate carvings that seem to shift and writhe in the flickering light. They depict creatures of impossible geometry and scenes of cosmic voyages. The air grows cold, and a low, resonant hum begins to vibrate through the soles of their boots. They find a central chamber. In the middle of it is a single, immense pearl, glowing with a soft, internal light. It's mesmerizing. As they reach out to touch it, the hum intensifies into a deafening roar. The ground shakes. Outside, the tide begins to rush back in, not with the slow, steady pace of nature, but with the speed and fury of a tidal wave. The explorers are trapped. The last thing they hear is not the sound of water, but a sound like a billion voices whispering a single ancient name from the heart of the glowing pearl. Back on the island, the survivors can only watch as the sea reclaims its territory with a vengeance. The tide returns to its normal level, but something is different. The water is darker, and that night, a soft, pearlescent glow can be seen, pulsing deep beneath the waves, just offshore. The tide left behind a story, a mystery, and a new, terrible fear. The islanders now know what sleeps beneath their home. They know the sea doesn't just take. Sometimes it shows you what it's hiding, just to remind you how small you are. So the next time you're by the ocean and you see the tide pulling back, watch carefully what it leaves on the sand. It might be a beautiful shell. It might be a piece of worn-out rope. Or it might be an invitation into a mystery far older and deeper than humanity itself. A piece of the abyss offered up for a moment before the water comes back to claim it. And you. That's our fire for tonight. The embers are growing dim, and the sound of the distant waves is calling. Ponder what secrets they hold for you. Thank you for joining me here at the Midnight Fire. stay safe, stay curious, and always be wary of what the tide leaves behind. Until next time, good night.